Temple Talk Tuesday is a safe place to grow, learn, and share. Anything presented here should be taken with the discretion of your personal health history, and any significant changes should be in consultation with your doctor or healthcare provider. The purpose of this platform is not to treat, but to inform participants how to be their own health advocate and to take control of lifestyle habits that can lead to poor health.
Tonight, staying motivated, as Joy just mentioned, is our topic, and I'm going to be sharing a video with you all. And the video is from a YouTube channel named Therapy in a Nutshell, where the therapist that creates the video, she's a licensed clinical social worker. She has a bunch of different topics, and I really liked this video on staying motivated. What I want everyone to do while we watch the video, like I said, it's about 15-16 minutes. I want you to listen for what you think the secret is to staying motivated. There's a lot of information given in the video. She talks about the brain, and she gives a few practical tips, but I want you to listen out for what you think the key is, the secret is to staying motivated. And it's kind of a trick question, that's a hint. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen.
Tons of videos out there teaching tips and tricks and raw motivation. But in this video, I'm going to teach you how your brain works so you can understand the principle behind how to get motivated and how to stay motivated. You're going to learn how dopamine, the neurotransmitter of reward and pleasure and motivation, works in your brain, and 4 simple things that you can do to get motivated and stay that way. I've got this friend in my neighborhood, and he's a super high-achieving high school student. He gets straight A's. He's taking a handful of college classes in high school, and he's an amazing musician. You know the type, right? Well, he's been telling me lately that he's struggling to finish his application to his dream university. I mean, he's gonna get in if he applies, but he's having a hard time getting it written. So what's the deal with that? I mean, it's so out of character. So it got me thinking, have you noticed how during the pandemic people are less motivated? I mean, I feel less motivated. It can be hard to get moving. And it's weird because people have more time on their hands than ever, but they're getting less and less done. And that's not because they have changed. Like, it's not like their genetic makeup has magically changed or anything, but it's because of how dopamine works in the brain. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter, the chemical in your brain that's associated with feeling rewarded or motivated. It helps us strive, it helps us feel focused, and it helps us find things interesting. It has to do with how we feel pleasure when we have sex or when we eat ice cream. And it also motivates us to work hard, to earn money, to eat ice cream. Now, dopamine is associated with sticking with something until it rewards you. So, for example, casinos take advantage of the dopamine response in our brain by randomly rewarding meaningless behavior, like putting coins into a slot. And when you do get a win, it dumps a ton of dopamine into your brain, which feels amazing, and that dopamine reward motivates you to keep doing it. So the same thing goes with fishing, right? Like, just one more cast, that's going to be the lucky one. Or metal detecting, just one more signal, that could be where gold is, right? And on a random side note, people who take artificial dopamine medication, like L-Dopa, for a disease like Parkinson's, they have sometimes developed terrible gambling addictions when before they took the meds, they never had a problem with gambling. So dopamine creates a reward that motivates a behavior, like gambling or fishing or working, being motivated. So basically, here's how the dopamine cycle works. You take action, then you get a reward, and then you have motivation to take more action. But here's where people get stuck. They think you need to feel motivated first to take some action. As in, I don't feel like writing, so I'm not going to start until I feel motivated. Or I'll just watch YouTube videos until I feel like exercising. And then when that magical bolt of motivation hits, that's when I'll be productive. and sometimes that works, right? Sometimes you feel motivated first, and then you take action. But that's not how motivation works in the long run. And this is why so many people, my friend included, are having a hard time getting motivated during the pandemic. Because motivation levels drop when you do less things. So because we're not leaving the house for work, we're less motivated. Because we don't have scheduled activities with our friends, we're less motivated. The less you do, the less motivated you feel. So this is the trap that many people get stuck in. They wait to get motivated before they do something. I think a lot of times we might look at someone who's super motivated. Like, for example, my in-laws, they are both super high achievers. They get up early, they exercise. My father-in-law goes and works at the hospital for long hours. He comes home and then he reads a bunch of books and he serves in his church and he does all these things. My mother-in-law is an artist and a writer, and she's serving and she's teaching youth groups and she's doing all these things, right? And you might look at someone who's super motivated and assume, well, they just feel like getting up at 5 a.m. and exercising. They must just have that one magical gift of a gene that makes them feel this way. But that's actually most likely not how it works. Doing something is how you get motivated. Motivation and dopamine come after taking action. And this is just hardwired into our brain. So just imagine our ancient ancestors out foraging for food and coming across an unknown berry. Maybe they decided to eat it, and it turns out it was delicious and nourishing. That little kick of excitement comes in after eating and absorbing the berry, and then that's going to motivate them to find the next berry patch. If, on the other hand, the berry makes them puke, then they don't have the motivation next time to eat that berry or to work for it. But imagine this scenario. What if the motivation to eat everything came before trying the berry? Then they'd be motivated to eat all kinds of dangerous foods. So motivation comes after action, not before it. Now, one of the things that many emotionally unhealthy people have in common is putting a lot of energy into trying to change how they feel. So this is generally a massive waste of energy. People struggle against feeling sad, or they wait until they feel motivated to act, or they avoid things that make them anxious. And you know what they get? They get more sad, less motivated, and more anxious. Stop putting your energy into trying to change your emotions directly. We're most likely to change emotions by changing how we act and changing how we think. Nick Wignall says anyone can feel motivated from time to time, but highly motivated people build routines and habits into their lives that generate motivation consistently. You can build up a chronic cycle of demotivation or a chronic cycle of motivation, and it really comes down to one small thing that you do. And that's going to determine whether you stay motivated or not. Let me give you one more example of that cycle, and then we're going to jump into specifics of how to get motivated and how to stay motivated. So one of the big aspects of depression is having a hard time getting motivated. It's feeling low energy and feeling little to no pleasure in the things you used to enjoy. So it's easy to see how that motivation, reward, dopamine cycle is broken. And it's hard to know what came first, the chicken or the egg here, but a common style of self-talk with depression is someone dismisses any praise that they get. Or when they do something well, they talk down to themselves. They say, oh, it's no big deal, or so-and-so could have done it better. Or they say, oh, I'm such a loser. And you just minimize your accomplishments. You maybe turn down compliments. And by doing that, you're basically crushing that sense of reward. Then the next day, you feel less motivated and it's harder to get out of bed. And that cycle continues. So that negative self-talk interrupts any rewarding feeling that you may get from taking action. And then this stops the dopamine from flowing, and then that's going to decrease motivation the next time. So this is why changing your self-talk can be really helpful with depression. But it's also why medication can be a good option for depression, because it can help you get moving, get started. And then once you get started, that can help you keep moving. So the way to stay motivated is all about reinforcing that motivating cycle to keep that dopamine flowing. So how we reward ourselves for tasks determines in the long run whether we build or decrease motivation over time. And it all starts with building small, regular habits, which really just starts with choosing one small thing to act on, right? Action leads to reward, leads to motivation, leads to action. So the way to get motivated isn't to wait until you feel motivated, but rather to take some action first and then highlight the reward it has for you. First, choose one small thing to start with and then try to do it. I know this can sound hard, but just pick something like making your bed. And then after you've done that, take a second to congratulate yourself for how nice it looks, and then give yourself a moment to bask in that tiny pleasure. Now, if you can't get yourself to start a big task that you're avoiding, you can start by moving in the smallest possible way. I asked my mother-in-law about this, and she says when she has a task that she doesn't really want to do, like scrubbing the floor, she'll make a little chart, and it's like, okay, do 3 minutes of something you enjoy, and then 3 minutes of something that's hard, and then 3 minutes of something you enjoy, and then 3 minutes of something that's hard. And that's how she gets things done throughout the day. She rewards herself by, getting to work on her art or getting to work on her novel in between, scrubbing the floor or whatever task it is. So some examples of things you could do that just get you moving are things like going for a 5-minute walk without a phone or drinking a tall glass of water. Anything that gets you moving can start that dopamine cycle. And then after you've done that, just reinforce that reward. Just give yourself a little bit of credit for doing that. Another thing that's important is just don't work in bed, don't lay down. Research shows that for people who stay in bed, their motivation decreases. So just little things like getting out of bed or getting dressed and then telling yourself, hey, good job, you did it. That's enough to get that motivation dopamine reward cycle going. Getting started can be the hardest part. So you could set a timer and do that task for X long. So, I'll just write for 5 minutes and then I can quit if I want. Then when you've completed the task, just make sure to give yourself some credit. Reward yourself with some praise or checking an item off your list. And that's going to reinforce your wins. This is how you build lasting intrinsic motivation. You sit and you bask in how good it feels. So you found this video. You're watching a video on how to get motivated instead of a cat video. And cat videos are okay sometimes, but you're working to improve yourself. So good work. Give yourself some credit right now. When you build one new habit at a time, the habits make it easier and easier to take action the next time. Now, let's talk about rewards for a minute. How you reward yourself matters. If you want to have lasting motivation, you really need to build up intrinsic rewards. It's okay to give yourself a piece of chocolate once in a while or treat yourself to something, but in the long run, what you really want to be building is that internal sense of pride that comes from accomplishing something you really care about. A lot of people are unmotivated because they've gotten trapped into unlasting forms of reward, external rewards. So these are things like people-pleasing or praise or money. And so what I'm going to recommend is that instead of chasing these temporary highs, build a lasting motivation cycle by chasing your own goals. Find your own reasons, your inner passions, beliefs, and values, your intrinsic rewards. And you can start doing that by asking yourself, what do you really care about? My husband recently told me a story about 3 stone cutters. So a man goes into a quarry and sees 3 different stone cutters. They're cut in stone. And he asks the first one, what are you doing? And he says, oh, I'm cutting stone. And the man says, well, why are you doing that? And he says, oh, for a pence a day. The second stone cutter, he goes up to him and he says, what are you doing? He says, I'm cutting stone. And he says, why are you doing that? And he says, oh, to put food on the table. And the third stone cutter that he goes up to, he says, what are you doing? He says, I'm cutting stone. He says, why are you doing that? And he says, I'm building a temple to my God. And it's going to be the most beautiful temple ever. It's easy to see how these 3 men doing the exact same task had different motivations for what they were doing. And you can develop your own intrinsic sense of motivation, even about the tasks you don't like. So imagine 2 different scenarios for getting the bathroom cleaned. The first form of motivation is like this. Ugh, I hate it if I have a guest come over and the bathroom is messy. Ugh, I guess I'll try to clean the bathroom. Or number 2. Ew, the bathroom is gross. I hate worrying about it. It'll feel so nice when it's all clean. It'll smell nice. My husband will be so happy that it's taken care of so that we don't have to do it on the weekend and we can go do something fun. It's going to feel so good when it's cleaned. The second form of motivation still accomplishes the same task, but the way it does it is through thinking about the good feelings and the intrinsic rewards that are going to come from cleaning the bathroom. There's a lot of ways to strengthen that internal sense of fulfillment and motivation. Building lasting motivation is all about bringing to mind over and over what is most important to you, what matters to you the most. So the first way to build intrinsic motivation is to really ask yourself, what do you want to be doing with your life? So take a moment to write down your values. What do you want to be doing with your one wild and precious life? Another way to build intrinsic motivation is to track your accomplishments. You can use a to-do list and check off the items. That's a way to reinforce that win. You can track your routines on paper, right? Like I do a 30-day chart where I mark off the days that I, complete my habit. Another thing you can do is do a calendar with a big red marker. Just like fill in that whole square of the day when you accomplish whatever your goal was. And basically, these are all different ways of just reinforcing that sense of accomplishment. Another thing you can do is reward yourself before the task. So I asked my mother-in-law, how is she so motivated to do so many things? And she says she just imagines what it'll feel like when it's done. So imagine how you're going to feel when you do complete a task. Visualizing how good it's going to feel when you're done strengthens that sense of accomplishment and motivation. And basically that just builds neural pathways that reinforce that positive behavior. Okay, stop rewarding bad behavior. Many people are unmotivated because they accidentally reward bad behavior like procrastinating. So if you do something fun while you're procrastinating, like gaming or watching a show, you're actually rewarding yourself for procrastinating. You're turning on that reward cycle for not taking action. So instead, don't reward yourself for bad behavior. If you're procrastinating, turn off your phone or your TV, because boredom can be really uncomfortable and that can be a really good motivator. So you don't have to, like if you're having a hard time getting started, you don't have to start right away, but just turn off your rewards that are keeping you from starting. And then you can still watch a show or play a game. Just use it as a reward for doing that something that you want to do. Okay, another really important thing to foster that motivation cycle that keeps building on itself is to stop the negative self-talk. Stop beating yourself up when you fail. It doesn't work in the long run. Because if you think you're going to get punished, then over time, your motivation decreases a little bit each time. Research shows that punishment is a very short-term source of motivation, and in the long run, leads to people being very demotivated. So there is no magical fix that's going to make you motivated all the time. But you can build up a consistent cycle of motivation little by little, gradually. And this is the way that your brain learns these dopamine pathways, right? This builds sustainable motivation. So don't wait to take action until you feel motivated. Get yourself to take small steps first, and then take the time to sit with that feeling of accomplishment. Don't use fear or self-punishment as a way to get things done, and find your internal sense of fulfillment to build that lasting and self-sustaining reward cycle. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. This video
Okay, so I'm going to pull up a few questions, but before I do, anyone want to take a stab at the question that I asked you guys to think about to answer at the end of the video? The secret to staying motivated. What is that one key, that one secret to staying motivated? And remember, I said it's a bit of a trick question.
I think it's action. Just
Yes.
do it. Just jump into it.
Yes. And okay, was someone else going to say something? I saw someone's mic unmute.
No, I agree with her wholeheartedly. I think it's action.
And it's the fact of not waiting. The action is tied into not waiting until you feel motivated to act. So we think the common myth is that we have to have motivation. We have to be in the mood to do something. We have to be ready to do something. We have to feel that to do something. And so a lot of times we wait around for motivation to come. But the key to staying motivated is scratching the need for motivation, understanding that you don't need motivation to act. So I have a few questions for our discussion. And let me move this out the way. The first one is God created our brain. How does the way that the chemical dopamine work reflect his design, and what may be a spiritual application? Anyone want to take a stab at that? When I look at it, and when I look at our brains and the way that God has so beautifully made our bodies, he has set us up for everything that we need to keep us going. He has set us up for success. He has actually put something in our brains that gives us a good feeling, that provides a system of reward when we do things that are connected to our goals, when we do things that are good for us. So he's already placed within us a whole system to help us along our way, to kind of give us that extra And when we kind of move and do our part, our body works with us. And when I think about a spiritual application, I think about what we feed. You know how the Bible talks about feeding the flesh, excuse me, starving, not feeding, starving the flesh and feeding the spirit. Even when it comes to our brains and how they work, God still allows us to navigate those choices that we have. And we can train our brain to be rewarded by things that are not spiritual, and it strengthens it. And so the more that we feed the flesh, it kind of holds us and it enchains us. But the more that we do things that are positive and feed the spirit and pour into ourselves and do things to help us become better people and that are tied to God's plans and sentiments towards us, it is easier. So the more we do it, the easier it becomes. It's not such a resistance, and even our brain helps us to do that. So I feel like that's one spiritual application. Any others that anyone took from just the way that our brain works and how God set up a whole system to actually help us on our way when creating or setting a new goal?
I have a spiritual application. I was
Yes.
actually thinking about the verse that says, he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him.
Mm,
And I think that that's the same verse, or maybe the same chapter, talks about without faith it's impossible to please him, right? And so a lot of people think faith is something that just comes, right? And you, just like the lady in the video said, she looks at her in-laws and think, wow, they're just so motivated to do. And like you just mentioned, that, motivation is something that is sparked from, I don't know, some arbitrary place. But it's not something that we find, it's something that we create, and it's very similar to faith, in that faith isn't just something that you have arbitrarily, but faith is a muscle. You have to work it, right?
mhm.
um it's biblical, right? Faith without works is dead. So to me, that's the spiritual application. You got to start doing it, and I've heard so many people say, even though it's not in the Bible, you make one step, God will make two. But the biblical application of, without the works part of it, you can't really expect to have the faith that God will and can show up in your life. You have to show some sort of signification that I'm willing, and I'm a part of the process, and that I believe. And so I thank God for making sure that we do have some part to play, because some of us will be spiritually lazy if we didn't have to do something, and that keeps us seeking him, it keeps us searching for him, but it also keeps our testimonies and the example we have for others alive, because they see us, even though we don't see what God will do, right? We walk by faith and not by sight, but they still see us pressing on, and that motivates others as well. So that's the spiritual application I see.
Thank you. Thank you. One crucial part of staying motivated is not to wait for motivation. Again, that was our secret answer. How is it possible to do things without motivation?
Action. I mean, we do things every day that we don't want to do, and we
Mhm.
accomplish them. It's kind of like what she was saying. Just don't wait for the feeling. Just take an action, and the feeling will eventually come. But
I love that, taking action. And a lot of times I think our idea of what the action should be may not be realistic or correlated to our level of capacity. We talk about that a lot. Just assessing what your capacity is and working to that. So on one day, your capacity may be to do 5 minutes of physical activity. Another day, you may have the capacity for 30 minutes, but keeping moving. I love how she talked about just having a small goal. It can be to make up your bed, anything to get that feeling of reward. I've done it. Thank you, God. I didn't think I could, but I was able to do it. So starting off with things that are small, but feel manageable, feel doable. She talked about, setting a time, a 5 minute timer, saying, okay, I can just do it for 5 minutes, working with where you are, working with the capacity that you have, and doing some type of action. I think a lot of times we think that the action has to be some huge, move or some huge push towards whatever our goal is, but we can build our motivation and build that positive cycle of motivation, not necessarily overnight, but by doing continuous movement and action over and over and over again. So I think that's the part that helps it not be so overwhelming, because sometimes when we hear action, it's just like, well, if it was that easy to do it, I would have already done it. If it's all it comes down to, it's just act, just move, just do it. But really working with yourself where you are.
Can I say how good our God is
Of
to
course.
equip us with everything we need?
Yes.
So like if you've ever purchased something and you open up the box and everything's not there.
The batteries aren't there.
Yeah, you're so upset because you gotta email somebody because everything wasn't in your box. But everything that's in Joy's box is in my box. That she's motivated to do those things. I can tap into that too because it's already in my box. It's already, we're prepackaged. We're already equipped.
He has set up our brains to help us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are some strategies from the video that you can start using today to stay motivated? Again, mine was focusing on small habits and doing them consistently, just to build that momentum, just to build that pathway in the brain of doing something each day, acting each day. That's, to me, has been life-changing. Anyone else want to share some strategies from the video that they're feeling like they can start using today?
Well, I heard you say the phrase "just do it," and I was thinking of "just do it." I think I saw that on one of the commercials. I don't know if it's a Nike commercial or what, but I know that a lot of times, there's things that I need to do, and I'm a procrastinator. I know that, and so I mean, I don't be wanting to do it, and then I just do. I just force myself to. You know what I mean? Because it feels like it's a force greater than myself that's keeping me from doing it. So it's like I'm not gonna let that win, and so I'll just do it. And then, like you said, when it's done, and then you go back. Let me say dishes, for instance. And I don't like leaving dishes in the sink at all. But there's sometimes when I say, well, I'm here all by myself. I ain't gotta worry about doing it for nobody but me. So I'm not gonna do it. And then I'll get up and do it. And then I feel so good that I did it when I go in there and I can just, my sink is cleared and I could just grab what I want. I feel really great about it afterwards. So then I'm happy that I just did it. You know what I mean? But I do have that struggle too frequently, I hate to say. But, you know, I just do it. And I like what the video said about taking action, because you just do it. You don't think about it, because when you think about it, sometimes you will procrastinate. You won't do it. You sit there and you keep thinking about it, and you know how they say, think long, think wrong, right? And so we don't want to do that, so we need to just do it.
And I even think about your example of washing the dishes, and this may seem like it doesn't make sense when you are trying to get something done and you don't want it to sit forever, but it kind of goes along with the idea of having any type of action. So say you are just struggling to get those dishes washed, and you can't even bring yourself to get up and do it. So your brain is creating some stress, which is creating some avoidance because you're thinking about it, you're getting overwhelmed, you're starting to say, oh, I don't have the energy. Even just going down, putting soap in the dishes and letting them soak. You're not even washing the dishes, you're just going in and soaking them. That's still action because you've gone and you faced that thing, even if it's just the first step, and you may do it the next day. And so that may seem like, oh, well, I didn't fully do it, I didn't completely do it, but you're still helping your brain not to avoid, and you're taking one small step, and then you can make more steps. So I can't stress enough how just any step, anything that's an action step that can help your brain create an association of action as opposed to avoidance is going to help you in the long run. Looking at it from a long-term perspective, you're building consistency, you're building habits, you're doing action over and over and over again to strengthen that momentum. Just like faith is a muscle, or everything that we do is a muscle, we have to build it. So don't feel any shame at starting at the very smallest component or part of whatever that thing is that you're trying to do. Crystal, I see you have your hand up.
I was going to say one of the things that I can, well, try to reprogram my brain, because when you said reward yourself before the task is done, and I'm like, I don't deserve to do that. I haven't done anything in order to reward myself, But again, reprogramming the brain, right? Rewarding yourself before the task is done, just as you talked about doing it and not waiting for motivation, to do it. And also, one of the things that I've been trying to practice, and it just feels weird, and you're just like, I feel stupid doing this. One is just I'm working on stopping the negative self-talk. So there was a post that I had seen on Instagram, and it was like this little picture, this picture of this woman. She's in a mirror, and the words are "Don't talk bad to yourself." But around the mirror, it says, "Talk to yourself as if you're your best friend." Try to catch yourself every time you say something mean to yourself and focus your attention somewhere else. Believe that how you think can affect how you feel. And then the last step is for you to say 4 nice things to yourself every day. So I tried practicing that. And I was like, I just feel so ridiculous doing this. Like, and it was like, you're even negative about trying to talk positive to yourself. And I was just frustrated. Like, I can't even find 4 nice things to say to myself. This doesn't work. So it's like, okay, you know what? Let's do baby steps. Maybe start with 1 nice thing for myself every day, and then build up to 2, and then 3. But I thought like the tips that she shared were really helpful and very, simple. Yeah, and there's something that for me, just implementing, because I know I like to have practical things. Like, people can say a lot of stuff, but I need practicality. I'm a hands-on person. And I was laughing because she was like, people who stay in the bed, their motivation decrease. And I'm just like, well, it's just going to have to decrease on Fridays and the weekends when I don't have to be anywhere doing anything. Like, I need a timeout, but sometimes and sometimes when I'm resting or taking it easy, then I feel bad because it's like, you can't get this time back. You need to be doing something. So it's just, finding that balance. But I did enjoy, the tips that she shared, and just implementing them, step by step.
Okay, thanks, Crystal. Michael?
Yeah, I just was listening to the video, and something that was powerful that stuck out to me, and it was like, oh, that's me, when she talked about rewarding negative behavior. Just sitting down and whatever you do, like watching TV, the example she made of watching TV or playing games, just to kind of distract yourself, but you're kind of rewarding procrastination basically, and it kind of further deepens your non-motivated self. And so it's just good to know that sometimes you don't realize some things that you do so indirectly to kind of deplete yourself of being motivated and being consistent and not procrastinating. And sometimes it's just things like this that you're sharing that kind of helps you to take a look and step back and like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, I do see myself a lot of times rewarding negative behavior, and it makes you feel even worse. So it was definitely very eye-opening and a very good thought that she gave, and good tip. And just start and just do something, and don't worry about completing it all, but do something. And every time I do it, I feel so much better.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael. Crystal, you were talking about things feeling silly. And one thing that I used to think was really silly was visualizing. I just, I wasn't connecting with it. But actually trying it where before you do a task or leading up to a task, you just imagine yourself doing it. You're creating some positive associations in your brain with that thing, thinking about how good you'll feel after. And I like how in the video she talked about tie it into what's important to you, your values. Why am I doing this? What's my reason for doing it? Kind of going back to that understanding of your why. But even if it's just, I can't wait to have a clean bathroom like in the video, and it's going to smell good, and I want to take care of myself and have a nice clean space to set off my day, and it's tied into me being in a good mood for today and springboarding my day when my bed is made and my bathroom is clean, thinking about doing it and creating some positive feelings around it to kind of counteract those procrastination type feelings of I don't feel like it, it's going to be hard, but getting some excitement around it. Cassandra? I saw your hand up, Cassandra.
Yes, I was gonna kind of like what you're saying about visualizing. There's a tool that we use in EMDR. It's called Movie. So you have the person to play out the entire scenario of what they want to do. Like they sit down, they envision, I walked in the room looks like this is what I did, this is the action I took. And like you play that, you have that person visualize that entire scenario, and it really helps. It really works because you're opening up your mind to what will happen, and you're kind of weeding out things, and it helps people to accomplish things all the time. So it's called the movie, and we use it for visualization to help people um, map things out. But I use something I use every day, which she talked about, was training your brain. Like I have trained my brain. Like if I'm at my desk, I know that I mean business. I am working. I never study when I was in school. I never studied outside of that desk because I knew that when I sat at that desk, I was focused. I was reading. I was taking care of my assignments, and so it's just kind of a trick way to get down to business. If you train that space and train your mind that this is where I do my best work, and I had to do it for my sleep as well because I had insomnia really, really bad when I was in graduate school. And I took everything out of my bedroom. I only went in there to go to sleep or to get dressed. That's it. And so for 30 years now, I've not had a television in my bedroom. There's nothing in my bedroom but what I need to use to go to sleep. That's it. And that's I've used that on patients as well to kind of help them create a better sleep routine. So it's all about training your brain. When you assign that space for that business, you can carry it out for forever. I've been doing it 30 long years.
Thank you. Anything else anyone want to share? If not, I just thought about
Jessica,
that.
I think Sister Colinda wanted to ask Sandy what EMDR was.
Oh, okay.
It's eye movement redirecting desensitization. So it's a mental health application that we use to help patients with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder.
So we'll go ahead and end with this verse because we're thinking about acting and doing, and it's Philippians 2:13. It says, "For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure." And some versions say to will and to act. And so we've been talking about doing and acting. And we remember where our power source is, where we get our strength from. We have such an advantage of having God with his listening ear. Every time we call his name, he's right there. He's eager to help. He's eager to give us what we need. So I just love that it's God that works in us to give us the will, the desire, and then the power to do. So happy acting and doing for the rest of this week. And I'm just wishing everybody, including myself, all the best with setting some routine, some action, some movement, and building that motivation.
Thank you.
Amen. Very good presentation.
Thank you, Jessica.
Praise
I
God.
echo everybody else. Good presentation. Excellent. Amen. All that good stuff.
Yes.
I always can count on Jessica to give us a presentation that will not only motivate us, but also help us to find hope in places where we thought, well, maybe I have no hope in this area. This is just who I am, you know. I forget who it was, but someone was like, I'm a procrastinator. I know it, you know, but God has given us the tools that we need. He's created us. I love what Sandy added as well. You know, we're all equipped with everything we need to get whatever done that we need to get done. And with the tools that we got from the video that Jessica shared with those thought-provoking questions, now we have some extra tools. And so I definitely will stop rewarding myself for procrastinating. I've learned that if I do want to get stuff done a long time ago, to not, you know, sit there and watch TV because I will never get it done. So I know it works, and just being able to have that self-awareness is so important. And so I thank Jessica for giving us some extra ways now to be self-aware and to get ourselves started. It's about action, right? It was a trick question. It wasn't about what's the key. It's just like just do it.
And I do want to add that I used to really be a big time procrastinator, especially when it was something that seemed challenging. I wasn't sure where to start. I didn't know what to do. A difficult task. I would find myself procrastinating all the time. And I'm not going to say I never procrastinate now, but I am so much better with procrastination, thank God. But it took about 2 years. So when it comes to building new habits, building new ways of doing things, I think when we're working in small increments, we don't see big enough results. So then we stop and say, well, what's the point? Because I don't see a big result. But it takes time and patience to build consistency. So just keep with the decision to act, 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 act. And it will become easier and easier. And then you'll look in a distant memory and be like, oh, I used to have such a hard time getting started or doing X, Y, and Z. And now it comes up and I just do it. And so, again, like I said, it took me about 2 years to really get a handle on procrastination. So allow yourself the time that it needs to really kind of create a new way of doing things.
I love that. Be patient with yourself. Extend yourself the grace to get there. You know, you're not going to change overnight.
But don't stop. Keep
But
moving.
but keep moving. Keep headed in the right direction. Right? Because you know, God gives us grace when we fall, but falling is an action, right? You had to be doing something to get the grace.
That's so true. You're not, someone told me you're not succeeding if you're not failing.
That's right.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, before any success, right? There's oftentimes some failure or several failures.
Mhm.
So you got to actually make that effort, and like we talked
Mhm.
about earlier, you know, that faith without works is dead, right? So you're like, Lord, I believe that I can be this or I can do this, and because you're not making that first step, what you're showing God is you don't really believe this, because if you did, you would have started doing it.
Mm,
So a lot of us, we are, in a sense, lying to ourselves. We
mm,
gotta we gotta be willing to put ourselves out there. And I know it can be scary. And I like Crystal's point too about the negative self-talk. Um,
mm,
because at one point I did used to do that a lot. And even about like just simple things like, oh, if I didn't get up and make my bed in the morning, I'm a lazy person, right? That didn't necessarily motivate me to make up the bed any quicker than telling myself, you can do it, get up and make up the bed, do this one thing and then start the rest of the day. It actually was a demotivator, all of the negative self-talk. And it was through a lot of trial and error. And like you said, Jessica, time, the teaching myself that, I'm capable of doing things and I don't have to label myself.
mhm,
That's not helping anything. And just again, extending the grace to myself was also very helpful for me. But this was very, very eye-opening. I'm wondering, and this is just a thought, I'm wondering what are some of the ways that we unintentionally demotivate ourselves once we get started? Because that seems to be an area now that, I'm not going to say it's a weak area, but it's a work area for me. So I'm very easily, even if I've started a task, I'm very easily demotivated if I'm doing something with someone else and I see that they're not putting in the effort. And then I'm like,
mhm.
I ain't doing it either. So I would love if we could talk about that maybe at another temple talk, but once we actually get started, right? How to stick with it.
Being consistent, right?
Yes, being consistent.
And everything is valuable. When we say, oh, this is my plan, and then it doesn't work. Okay, well, what happened? Instead of saying, well, I'm lazy or I'm this or I'm that, what happened? Maybe I wasn't, working with myself in the right time of day, or maybe this wasn't working, or I need to kind of adjust my goal and make it a little bit smaller. So everything on the path is valuable. You just have to stay on the path.
Or could it be that maybe you realize you just weren't as interested as you thought you were when
And
you
that could
began?
be that's too.
Make it plain.
Self-awareness.
You ain't want to do it anyway.
There you
That's
go.
a good point, Kalinda, because sometimes with me, there's things I'm like, yo, this sounds like a really good idea, and why not go through it? Then just kind of like having that pros and cons list, and it's like I will not follow through with this faithfully. It was just a good idea, and then I'm gonna have to leave it at that.
It's
Table
not for
it,
me.
yeah, table it until I
Mm-hmm.
know for sure that there's going to be commitment through all the way through with this. Because the Word of God tells us to be not just hearers but doers of the Word.
Hmm.
And like Joy said, we want to have faith, and faith is an action word, and you can't wait to go. I feel like I got faith. Have faith. Step out, even though you don't see, you don't understand, but you're stepping out because you believe. That, like you said, imagining it. As I prepared for some things and starting a new chapter, I'm finding that I was really fearful. I would speak about, it a lot and wanting to relocate a lot and, just fearful. But as I think about it more and the exciting things, and I'm like, Lord, let this be my birthday present before my birthday in August. Let me celebrate it somewhere new, right? And like just the cold weather here, I'm just like, woo, last winter, I was like, oh, I can't wait for the warm that's going to be all over me and wear my bathing suits, as I'm making my list and dividing things up, like, all right, well, we're going to need to sell this and we're going to need to, do this and, these things. And so that's kind of like, it's like the excitement is starting to override the fear. And, I was just saying that, to my sister, and I was just like, it is scary. I was like, but I don't want to be sitting here in 2023 talking about it in 2024. And then next thing you know, Jesus done came and you still ain't did nothing. So go and not being afraid like you will fail, but what if you fly? You
Trans-
don't know you're gonna fly until you try it,
yeah, translating that fear or nervousness or anxiety, interpreting it as excitement as opposed to interpreting it as fear.
Mm-hmm. And just remembering also the ways that God has showed up, in my life, even the times where, I went and traveled and, kind of like got lost in the area, but then God just bring people to help you, or he, makes it clear, like just all these little things, remembering what the things that he has brought me through, and like he's going to do it again. And just really realizing the negative self-talk, like I told my sister when we talk, I was like, a majority of the time, 99.9% of the time, that's the enemy. It's definitely not God, talking to you. And, like you said earlier, the flesh and the spirit. And I was just telling her, I said, there's an elder always said, you've got like the spirit, and then you got the carnal part, you got like the wolf. And if you keep on feeding that wolf, he's going to become strong. But if you feed the spiritual part, that's going to be stronger, and you're going to die to the flesh. You're not going to desire, those things anymore. So just talking about those things, and, just practicing the positive self-talk instead of, the negative, because I know it's not God saying that. He wouldn't say anything negative, to me. Like when you read his word, you see it's good. That's why it's a good book, the good gospel, And so it has to be the enemy. And a lot of times we've given him access, and he need to be evicted. He needs to be evicted. Too long has he taken up space. He ain't paid no rent. He's done nothing good, have contributed nothing. So he needs to be evicted, and we need to go forward in faith over fear.
Amen.
Can I share a poem real quick, Jessica and Joy? A poem that I came across many years ago that is so motivational, and I think is very perfect for this presentation. And I think that it was divinely appointed. I put it in the chat for everybody to be able to read and follow along, but it's very powerful. It says, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a failure turns about when he might have won if he stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow. You might succeed with another blow. Often the struggler has given up when he might capture the victor's cup. And he learned too late when the night slipped down how close he was to the golden crown. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of clouds and doubt. And when you never can tell how close you are, it may be near when it seems afar. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seems worse that you must quit.
Amen.
Man.
It's a powerful poem, and I think it's just perfect going along with the motivational speech to not give up. Don't give up.
Thank you.
Michael, that was a good poem. I'm glad you put it in the chat. You're gonna have to text it to me. Hey, Crystal, I'm glad to know that you're trying to meet the Lord when He cracked the sky in the two-piece. She said she's gonna be somewhere warm.
Well, listen, as long as my heart is right, I'm just saying, I'm be clothed with the robe of righteousness.
That's right. It don't matter what you have on, right? He's gonna give us all new clothes, a new
As
body.
long as I'm sealed, that's
That's
best.
right. Praise God. Well, this was excellent. I don't know if anybody else has anything they want to share. All right. Well, let's close with a word of prayer. Father God, we thank you for giving us these messages of hope, of not giving in and giving up on ourselves, Lord, but knowing that we can do all things through you. We can stay motivated. Lord, there may be some practical things that we need to do. There may be some efforts that we have to make, like just getting started, just moving forward, and knowing that you will give us the strength just to make the one small step. And Lord, that you've equipped us, and that we know, for a matter of fact, we know, Lord, that you will hold our hands and you will see us through. You will allow the rest to take place if we just put our trust and faith and rest in you. And thank you, God, once more for Jessica, for always giving her the wisdom and the insight to give us exactly what we need. Continue to bless her in her uh, field, or I'll even say her ministry, God, because you've called her to be a help to people, to be a soother of men's minds and hearts. Continue to bless her in her profession, and as she continued to share with us on Temple Talk. Be with everybody who's here on tonight, Lord. Let these lessons just reverberate in us and impress them on our minds and our hearts. And when we may even forget, Lord, help us to remember, bring them back, Lord, and help us to apply them so that we may be better men and women for you. We love and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Joy.
You're
Amen.
welcome. Thank you, Jessica. Hey, before you go, we just want to say thank you. Temple Talk has been around for a whole year now, and it's because of people like you who subscribe to our YouTube channel and faithfully listen to our posts, and who come on Tuesday night, that we continue to do what we do, both for you and to share the good news about health and healing through Jesus Christ. Thank you again for subscribing, listening to, and attending Temple Talk Tuesday. Leave a like, and God bless.